Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Can we have the roll call of members, please? Randall?
Here.
Greenway? Here. Mueller? Here. Jill?
Here.
Sarda? Here. And we do have a quorum. We'll move on to item number 2, approval of our agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda before us.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Greenway? Yes. Mueller?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
Jill?
Abstain.
Sarda? Yes. Move on to number 3, approval of minutes.
A motion to approve the minutes from the February 11th, 2025 regular school board meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mueller?
Yes.
Greenway? Yes. Randall?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Sarda?
Yes. Item number 4 is conflict of interest. At this time is when we disclose any possible direct or indirect conflicts that we have.
I do have an indirect conflict of interest with item F.
Okay, thank you. We'll deal with that next on our consent agenda. So we're going to pull that off our consent agenda and vote on that separately, okay? Okay, item number 5 is consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of F. Right?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and discussion. Or we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Greenway? Yes. Randall?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Sarda? Yes. Okay, now let's deal with item F on our agenda. And that is a teacher contract.
Motion to approve the teacher contract for Clara Shield.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Greenway? Yes. Mueller?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes.
Jill?
Abstain.
Sarda?
Yes. Okay, we're moving on to item number 6, our public comment. Did we have anybody signed up to give us public comment?
Not yet.
Okay. Item number 7, our good news and student achievement. Mr. Lucas will speak first.
Good evening. So had a lot going on at Stewart's the past month. So we had writers on the table the other day, and I chuckled because I was talking about how some of the kids were so nervous when they got up to speak up first, but they did great. Some of them were persuasive, and they were trying to persuade me that we needed a parrot. Was one of them. A paper about that. So it's kind of fun just to hear the different persuasive pieces they wrote. We also had a Stewart-Webster assembly where we did the magic of cooperation. We brought Stewart and Webster together and introduced the Webster kids to the Stewart kids and Stewart kids to Webster. We kind of split Webster into 2 groups and had half go in one class and half go in the other, so they didn't just sit Webster, Stewart. They actually got to talk to each other and do some fun things like that before that assembly. We also had our 4-5 concert. It was a rock and roll concert. It was really cool. It was, we had the Beatles dressed up and some boys that really got into going up and acting it out and that. So it's kind of fun to just see that concert take place as well. We did not have Stewart started to go because that was a snow day that we had the other day, so we can cross that off. One that we're excited about coming to Stewart's that Webster's also going to participate in is the Des Moines Metro Opera is going to come and present the Billy Goat Gruff to Stewart and Webster. Scott Arns works for the opera, and he reached out to me and said he was a former Stewart graduate, former Yankton graduate. He wanted to come and give it back to his school that he went to elementary school at, and I said, sure, we'll take you. And part of that, they actually have 2 sessions where the opera people come in and actually work with classes and talk about what opera is. So we're kind of excited to see that take place here. That'll be in April. And then just my last thing is we've been doing some different merge things with staff. Stewart and Webster, they've all been told their room assignments for next year, so they're kind of excited to start talking and seeing where the room's at, how they're going to set things up and that. And we have things moving forward planned with them as well before the school year's out. Do you guys have any questions for them?
Ms. Lucas, inquiring minds want to know, are you getting a parrot?
No, we are not getting a parrot. I said, that's a hard no. We're going to say no to that one, so. Anything else? All right, thank you.
No, thank you. And Mr. Clemish?
Good evening, I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of my favorite times of the year, junior kindergarten and kindergarten spring. That'll be coming up April 30th and May 1st. We have probably spent well over 30 years at the Yankton Community Library doing kindergarten spring. And then the last 3 years, we have done it at the Yankton High School. And now this year, we really get to celebrate because we are coming to TLC with kindergarten spring. We recently had a registration there. It was a beautiful evening, and our new recruits got to come and get registered. Our, parents and kids were able to come into the new building, into the lunchroom, and see that. It was very exciting. Well, on April 30th, we're going to invite them back once again for kindergarten spring. And the picture up there is our team that we had last year at kindergarten spring. It's made up of kindergarten teachers, speech therapists, our title people, myself, secretaries, to screen probably 150 plus kids for junior kindergarten and kindergarten. The next slide will show you a little bit about what we do at kindergarten screening. These are some of the content areas that we look at with our kids. Don't use this as a cheat sheet to, quiz your kids to get them to do really well at the screen, but these are the areas that we look at. And, personal information, identification of colors and shapes. You can see the rest of the areas that we look at. We try to make it fun for the kids. They usually come with 2 teachers and they go through the screen. The next you see is how we score it. And remember, it's a screen. It is not an evaluation. So we would have parent permission to do any type of a evaluation with your special education or anything like that. But it gives us a lot of great information for the kids going into junior K and kindergarten. Junior kindergarten kids, current junior kindergarten kids, do not have to do the screen. So it's just for next year's. Before I go any farther, and you can see the pictures of last year, this is the class of 2038, folks. 2038. So with our 3 and 4 year olds who are not a part of the screen, but that takes us to 2040. So I don't know if I'm going to see them to the end of their educational career, but as you can see, we make it fun for the parents and the kids at junior kindergarten screen. And we get some good signing bonuses. The kids get to sign on to Yankton schools and be future bucks and gazelles. I think Dr. Kendall would agree that's one of our favorite times of the year is seeing the new kids come in and mom and dad are excited and nervous. Kids might be a little bit nervous, but it's gotten so much better. I think Melanie would agree since we've had kids in our early childhood center. When they come here, it's just so much better. Kids are used to being at school and doing things like this. So it's a proud moment. Any questions?
No, just a comment that this is a pretty lucky kindergarten class.
Right.
Having being the first year. And then
I agree.
it's
I agree.
exciting.
Our open house will be, just a few days before this, so the kids will get into the rest of the building, but we will have it in the new gym at TLC and get them all ready to go. Pretty exciting times. That's all I have. Thank you.
I had one other good news item to share. So this morning when I was coming into the building, one of our bus drivers was leaving, and Connie, she stopped me for a minute and she showed me a picture. And it was a picture of some kids, and what she told me was that this student right here is one of the kids on my bus, and I'm really proud of her. I saw this in the newspaper, and she's part of our Educators Rising program at the high school. And so Connie was going to go get that framed and give it to her, I think tonight after school. And I thought, that's worth sharing. That was really nice of Connie and thoughtful of her. But it's really, honestly, it's really what happens every day in the school district. There are lots of stories like that. And so I just wanted to share that. Made me feel really good.
Thank you. we're gonna move on to item number 8 is our school calendar. The first one is to amend, the 2025-2026 calendar. There was just that the Native American holiday was not deducted from the days in session for staff or students in the first quarter, although we have plenty of days built into our schedule, so there was never an issue about students ever not being in the classroom, the requirement of ours. This is an action item, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the 2025-26 calendar as amended.
Second?
I have a motion and a second, any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mueller,
Yes.
Shield,
Yes.
Crandall,
Yes.
Greenway,
Yes.
Sarda.
Yes, okay, so item number B is the 2026-2027 school calendar. Did you want to add anything here, Dr. Kendall, or?
The only thing that I would add is that just like every year, I ask input of our staff. I think this year either had 3 or 4 was all that had input. The one item that came off the list that has been on there the last 5 years is Super Bowl Monday, that we should have a holiday. We have never added that, so I think whoever it is decided, I think I'll drop that one. But anyway, we've actually though, on some of the input, we've really looked at that and we've done some different things in our calendar. So what we're proposing tonight, we've taken input, our admin team has looked it over a couple of times, so this is our recommended calendar for 26-27.
All right, thank you. This is an action item, so I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the 26-27 school calendar recommended by school administration.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mueller,
Yes.
Greenway,
Yes.
Crandall,
Yeah.
Shield,
Yes.
Sarda.
Yes. Item number 5, we're gonna talk about some federal programs and some federal program funding. So Dr. Kendall and Mr. Clemish.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Schild, one of our school board members. He had actually brought this up that, you know, could we hear a little bit more about how the federal funding might impact the school district and our students if there were any kind of cuts to the different programs that we offer. So tonight, we're going to talk, take some time to talk about that. Mr. Clemish deals with a lot of our federal programs, and of course Shereen with the budget, she deals a lot with that. And then we have a lot of different discussions, obviously, about how these programs help all of our students. And Mr. Clemish is going to go through that. And then at the very end here, I'm just going to spend maybe 3 or 4 minutes on a document that I picked up at a national conference that I just got back from here. And I just want to highlight a little bit more about the federal programming because it was a very, very hot topic and one that we should all be concerned with. So Mr. Clemish.
Thank you, Dr. Kendall. I hope I don't leave you with more questions than answers this evening, but we have a public meeting every May that goes through every item of Title I, 2A, 3, 4, and we invite parents, families, anyone from the public can attend that. So this is the first sheet from that meeting. We've had it every year, a consolidated grant meeting. It's a requirement, so we are just kind of talking about this a little bit early.
How is your attendance?
Pardon?
How is your attendance at those meetings?
The people that we invite usually show up. We give them pizza, Terry. So everyone shows up for that, and then we go over what our funds are used for and things like that each year. We also invite Sacred Heart staff, principal, to come because as you can see in the budget, they do receive a proportional share of federal money. And I'll show you how much they receive and what they use it for. But the largest amount that we receive in the title area is Title I funds. And we use all of our money for Title I for staffing for our intervention programs for reading and math. This year we have 6 interventionists. We have 2 at Beale, 2 at Lincoln, 1 at Stewart, and 1 at Webster. So that's our Title I program. Title IIA, teachers are on the other side of the desk. That supports our teacher quality and training. That's our Title IIA. And then our other big one is Title IV. We use that for student support. It's really dictated to us how we can use it, but one of the biggest areas is our SRO for student safety. A part of Title IV is used for that. And next slide can go even a little bit deeper into that. Like I said, Title I impacts about 300 students at the elementary level in all 4 of our elementary buildings with math intervention and reading intervention. And some kids do both. So that's how, Title I is the highest need. Each school is determined by their free and reduced student numbers. And you have to be over 35% free and reduced to receive that. And it's rank ordered. Title I is always, the Department of Ed has always made sure that kids with the highest need are rank ordered for that number. I am pleased to say that all 4 of our schools, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, but our free and reduced numbers, all 4 of our schools for next year have made 35%, so that's good news. You can also see that parent engagement, family literacy night, we use those funds, Title I funds to do all that. And the private school, with their allotted, with their proportional share, they send their kids, I meet with the principal, and this is decided by the grant, how much money that they will receive in the state. And then we calculate how many students are come over to the public school to receive the math and reading intervention. Title II-A, our safety training, we decide each year where teachers are going to, whether it's think 3D, safety training this year, math and reading training. In the private school, they're allowed to pick and choose what they want to use their allotted share of that too. Title IV, I mentioned the SRO, in-town busing. We support a part of a bus driver's salary, a part of that, and part of our technology integrationists. Private school, whereas if you notice, let's see, one part for technology, so to speak, if they order a projector, like it says up on the screen, they can use that projector. Our school purchases it for them. It goes to Sacred Heart. They can install it where they want to, but when it ends, or maybe it's not of value or use anymore, it goes back to the district. They can't keep it, they don't own it. They use it for the federal money and the time. Okay? All right, next slide. All right, here I wanted to show you how much money that we receive in federal dollars in each of the Title I, II, and IV Part A areas. I have 2 years there just to show you that, some years it goes up, some years it goes down a little bit, but all of these allocations are given to us by the state. The state calculates all the allocations out. So for this school year, Title I, like I said, that's a biggie, 600,000, a little over 600,000, almost 601. The private schools proportionate share is 21,000, almost 22,000. That's their share of how many kids can come over and receive reading and math intervention. So that's a big one. Title II-A for teacher training, once again, you see Sacred Heart gets $11,284. That comes out of the 183 up above, just to be clear on that. That allocation, you already know what we use it for, but that's an amount. You can also move some of these funds around a little bit. You can almost, like we have the last few years taken about $20,000 from Title II and put into Title IV in the grant because we wouldn't have enough to support the SRO and everything that we want to do. And that's fine. You have to go through a process with the state to do that. That all goes into the consolidated grant. So Title IV, $71,000. The next one I really want to talk about is IDA, and that is $823,000 of federal money, and that is our special ed That's for special ed fund. Now, that's less than 20% of our budget. It goes to salaries, to support 482 special ed kids in Yankton schools. So that money, that 823,000, is, less than 20% of our total special ed budget, but we would not be able to do many things with our special ed kids without that. And I'll go back up to Title I for a second. That 600,000 goes towards salaries. A little bit for supplies, curriculum, but that is to support our intervention staff. Same with IDA money, same thing. Once again, private schools receive, $11,000, which is down a little bit from last year, to receive. What we do there is we meet. Now, if they had one kid in, let's say, would qualify for the resource room, that $11,000 wouldn't even cover that every day. So they choose to do speech kids with their IDA money, that $11,000. So that gets them, each of this year's 7 kids that come over to the public school for speech therapy, that gets them through the school year with those 7 kids coming over for their 120 or 220 minute sessions each year. Okay? Or I can stop, take any questions that you may have at this time.
I don't suppose this is probably getting ahead of the whole thing, but we have no idea what's gonna happen yet, right?
I'll get to that, Terry.
Okay. Yeah, questions, Joe.
And like I said, I'm not gonna leave here with more questions than the answers, but I'll finish this up, sorry.
Can I just ask one quick one
Sure,
before you jump
yeah.
in? So, do we do the calculation as far as how much it's
No,
gonna cost? I mean, you got 10 kids and it's gonna cost $20 an hour, they get so many hours, how does that
are you
calculate?
talking about the special ed for
Yes.
the proportional share? Yes.
Yes, if they send
Yes.
some kids over, who
Yeah.
calculates or how does
Yeah,
that
so
get?
all of the title up above is based on their money they get with their new school since they don't have like free and reduced numbers, it's taken off their partners in education, number of families that receive partners in education funding from the state, which is that insurance fund. You guys know what I'm talking about there? Yep. So that's how it's based. We have to base ours on free and reduced numbers. They use those numbers, partners in education. That goes to me and it goes into a calculation. And that's how many kids that their IDA money, the 611 Part E. However many kids are tested and qualify from Sacred Heart School, it's not just speech, but if they have somebody who would qualify for resource room help, so to speak, the school and their parents have to decide if they're going to come over to the school, leave Sacred Heart and receive the special ed benefits or not. That's their decision. So the state takes in the December 1 count when we give all of our special ed numbers for the Yankton schools to the state. We also have how many kids that we've tested and how many kids that qualified for the private school, and they calculate their proportional share from those numbers. And then the actual kids, the number of kids, yes, we have to take how much our speech therapists get, it's all divided up to a per hour dollar amount. And then that goes into $11,000, how many hours they would get, and it depends on how much they qualify for too. Good question.
So we're calculating all that
Yes.
hourly rate.
Correct.
Okay.
That's based on salaries and insurance of our staff. All right, Carl Perkins is money that goes towards CTE programs, career and technical education. So that's the dollars that we get from that. And then Title III gets a little more confusing. We are part of a consortium with Brandon Valley, and everyone in the room is probably scratching their head. Why would we be with Brandon Valley? So if you don't have enough ELL kids, that's our English language learner kids. We take that number that we have in our district each year, and if we are not above a certain number, it's usually around 70 kids or less, then about, Dr. Kimball helped me out 6-7 years ago, maybe. He joined with Brandon Valley so that together our numbers would reach 70 so that we could be a part of getting Title III numbers. What has happened is, over the last 4 years, we are both way over 70. We could probably separate our consortium money, but there's a whole bunch of other rules and stuff, so we have worked cooperatively with them the last 3 years. So I have to calculate out how much, according to their numbers and our numbers, how much Brandon Valley gets of the $30,000 and how much we get. And then we're able to use that for our ELL. We don't use that for staff, we use that for supplies, a Lexia program that helps kids learn English. So working with their English language learner kids.
Can I ask a question, Jerome, or
You bet.
So is there accountability, Title III? In other words, the test, I know you do the testing for kids.
Yeah.
So is that a consortium score, or is it broken down by district?
We get a little bit of state aid for each of our ELL kids too. It's only like $200 a kid, but you know, we don't get any specific money for our ELL teachers. But every one of these areas has some form of accountability. So our Title I kids, Nicole could probably do a whole night on what we do with keeping track of those kids. Our ELL kids, we have WEDA testing, we have our access testing, so all of that is a part of the numbers that are counted for
Because
that.
you're funded as a consortium, are you graded as a consortium, or are you graded as individual schools?
Individual,
Okay,
yep,
that's what
yep.
that was.
So the money flows through Yankton just because when it was set up before my time, Brandon Valley and Yankton, the money flows through us, but if they want to have the Lexia program like we do or whatever, I talk to their director and they're allowed to purchase it. And then Shereen, you can maybe tell us how that works.
It's pretty much, we're two separate things, and I just put it together, so I'm doing the reimbursement, making sure everything is correct with the funding and all the accountability documents. We have to send in proof of what they spent and what we spent, so we're just holding all the documents, but the schools are treated separately as far as what they need to do and how they spend their money. In this grant, I just do all the paperwork. The school has to be, one of the schools have to complete the paperwork, and we are the ones that do that.
So every penny of that $30,000, every penny of the $600,000 up above, every penny, that's what I spent the month of June doing. Part of May and June is allocating every dollar to the penny of where that money is going to go. And it has to be listed out, it goes into a huge grant, and principals have to put some information in, but we have to come up with how that's all going to be allocated out, down to the cent. Yeah. So the next part is what's going to happen. I don't know a lot about what's going to happen. I think Dr. Kimball has a little bit, but so in November, you may or may not know Mike Rounds, our South Dakota senator, introduced a bill called Returning Education to Our States Act. And a part of that is the Department of Ed going away. So, but probably the most concerning is what's going to happen to the dollars here. And, that there's a lot of concern there. We heard, some of the, like Title I being cut, 25%. I don't know if that's gonna be a number or not. This, the new Department of Ed chair, or the Secretary of Ed, Linda McMahon, just came on board. I've not heard a lot. But to be proactive, last month, Mrs. Sue Ray resigned, and we looked at, if this was a 25% cut, that'd be $150,000 off the 600. That's only if we get 600. We don't know that number. We don't know that number. As you can see, it went down from last year. It could change. It could change. So could the IDA money. We don't know. So we did not hire a position back as of yet because we don't want to hire someone and then a couple months later say, well, now we can't afford it. So that's why we're sitting with that position.
So in that case, one of the things we talked about was, you know, the best way to approach cutting federal funding is to try to do it through attrition. And in this case, like Mr. Clemish said, we had a teacher that retired, is going to retire, and so we wouldn't hire that position back. Plus, we also have some carryover money, which we're allowed to do, so that would carry us for an additional year with that other FTE, but at least it would give that other person, whoever it may be in that other position, time to be thinking about it, you know, at least a year in advance, that they'd have time to plan for that. And so I'm going to pick up where Mr. Clemish left off here with funding.
I'll just jump in and one comment on
Yeah.
that. That does not mean that Stewart, since Mrs. Ray was at Stewart, that does not mean that Stewart Elementary does not have a Title I person. Like I said, in the consolidated grant, it's all based on free and reduced numbers. That's where that is all calculated out. So that shares and determines a little bit about who goes where of the 5 remaining title teachers, and so that we have coverage on the schools that need it the most.
Thank you, that's good clarification. If you leave this up, Shreen, just this screen, that would be good. Now, these are not in order, but I'm going to just give you some numbers. I was at a national conference in New Orleans. I got back at 1 o'clock this morning, and not by choice, but by flights. And so I'm going to buzz through this pretty quick. And I'm not going to get into numbers, but I'm going to tell you about cuts. So Title I, this is what we learned at the conference in one of the many great sessions. Not that this was a great session to hear about this, but at least it gave us some updated information. So the House bill that's being proposed for Title I would cut $4.7 billion. So that would be about a 25% cut in our funding, as you see it up there. And the Senate version is a $280 million increase. And so, you know, that would not affect our Title I in a negative way, and it may even bump it up just a little bit, so that would be good. In the IDEA, that was, you know, the good news there was that the House version of their bill is a $25 million increase, and in the Senate, their version is a $295 million increase. In the Title IIA, in the House version, it was a complete cut of Title IIA, meaning that there would be no dollars for 2A, and in the Senate version, it would remain level funding, so there would not be a decrease nor an increase. In the Title IV, Part A, in both versions of the House and Senate, they left it at the current level, so that was good news. Impact aid is not up there, but we do get a little bit of impact aid money, and that's through the dam because they took land away when they flooded, and so there's a little bit of an increase there. But those are the numbers that we had for those categories, and I may not have hit all of these like Carl Perkins and Title III, but overall I gave you kind of an overview of what they're thinking. May or may not happen with those particular funds. And then, you know, you may ask, you know, if Title IIA were eliminated and we had no funding, you know, what might that look like? I'm going to have Nicole jump up for just a minute, and she can talk a little bit about what we've used 2A for teacher training, and there's been a lot. And so maybe if you just quickly talk about some of those.
Sure. So every year, our Title IIA money goes towards speakers and training that we offer on our in-service days as well as during the summer. Over the past few years, we've done Big 3D, we've done literacy training, we have done different types of speakers. Each department has a different focus of content area, so that they would have speakers. We've done responsive classroom training, We've done Boy Scout training, zones of regulation training. I'm trying to think of my list off the top of my head.
Counselors,
Yeah,
training.
yep, so, social emotional training with our counselors, which then, a lot of our training is, we use a model of train the trainer. So we train such as our school counselors, where right now we have a literacy team. And we train them, and then they train our staff, in larger scale and numbers. So we try to be very efficient with our training costs as well. We can train, my literacy team right now is 9 people. And then they're in charge of training our whole district staff, actually preschool through 12th grade.
Thank you. Are there any questions for any of us?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Pardon me, there's more unknowns than knowns right now, correct?
Yes, that would be accurate.
None of these proposals have passed either house, correct?
No, they have not.
And is there any indication from anybody, say they would or whatever, say the house version goes through, is there any indication from anybody, do the requirements go away or just the funding?
The requirements do not go away.
They don't go away, so we have to,
You have to follow IDA, or SPED and their ESA fund, those do not go away.
and to me, that's pretty significant, because that's a lot of money. And where did that come from?
Well, and we've talked about this, for the last couple of years. Our special education fund, is really, we use it because we need to use it. We have kids with a lot of needs. We have a lot of students and families that move here because of our exceptional programming and special education. And because of those numbers and some high placements and a lot of other things that have impacted our special education dollars, we have seen that fund balance, continue to drop. And I've said this to the board the last 2 years that I would predict, within the next 2 years that the Yankton School District, for the first time ever, would have to go to the Extraordinary Cost Fund. And that is a fund that the state has set up for schools that are in a financial need to meet their special education budget needs for their kids. And if Yankton is going to need to do that, I can guarantee you that there are going to be other large schools that will be facing the same circumstances that they will. And so that's one picture of it. The second picture, as Mr. Crandall mentioned, is that in addition to that, if any of these other funds are cut, they then even impact us more for our students. And so I think between state funding and the federal funding, there has to be a very serious discussion, and parents should get involved with this about funding of our schools, including federal dollars for all these programs. They're not wasted dollars in the Yankton School District. They're used very effectively. We do a lot of great things that we mentioned here tonight, and the impact of losing any of these dollars, especially to just zero them out and say there's just no more funding for it, would be pretty significant for our students, and that's what would impact most, our students, and that's just not a good thing.
Can I add one thing too? When Congress first, I'm going to spitball some of this because I'm not really sure about numbers. When Congress first passed the idea, to me, in my mind, there was a certain percentage that they guaranteed would be funded. Maybe 40%.
That's correct, 40%.
And the actual number today is what, 15%?
Less than 20%.
Yeah, so-
17.
So again, promises made, but not promises kept by the government.
And I would add that what Mr. Crandall just mentioned about not ever hitting the 40%, that's a bipartisan thing. This isn't a political thing here about which party. This is bipartisan because that has gone on for years that it has not been funded like they intended for it to be funded.
I don't have a question, but when I think of this, when I think of a lot of the federal funding, we're talking about some of our most vulnerable students and people in our community. And it's just, one of the things, and a lot of this money is what shapes what we do in our strategic plans. and how we go through our curriculum integration, where we need to put our money in different ways to be as strategic as we possibly can about our learners. And so if we lose that, you know, when we start talking about losing money, when we think about the greatest proportion where we spend our money, it's in bodies, it's in teachers, it's in staff. That is going to be exactly what we will lose. Those people, their knowledge, those intervention skills, and our strategy, to be honest.
I have one more comment that I can't leave out, okay? And I forgot to write my note, but it came back to me. So what's very interesting about what I just shared with you about the potential cuts and the differences between the House version and the Senate version of funding these federal programs is this. There is a voucher bill, national voucher bill being discussed. And what I learned at the conference in another session was that the voucher bill, if I recall right, is $10 billion for 10 years, $1 billion a year for the next 10 years. And what I don't understand, just like we had that conversation here in South Dakota about how can you be cutting a budget but adding a program like vouchers? It's the same thing here. How could we be talking at the federal level about cutting education programs that are working and impact some of our most vulnerable kids that need this, but yet adding voucher systems? Because we have great choices here in Yankton, and I would much rather see all of these fully funded than a national voucher program. I would say take care of this first, by all means. Plus, I'm opposed to vouchers.
Is there any other discussion or questions? Okay, we'll move on to item number 10, which is Webster School.
Okay, I was just gonna take a moment just to explain where we are in Webster School. Back in November, we passed surplus Webster School, and now we have the appraisal and all that done. So you will see in the next 2 weeks in the paper, we're gonna be advertising for sealed bids, and they will be due April 10th. And so take a look at that, it'll be in the paper twice the next 2 weeks. And then we will award April 11th, and then be ready, hopefully have some bids to present to you in the April board meeting. Just want to give you a heads up that we didn't forget about it, it's still out there, we were just waiting for a couple of things, the appraisal and things like that, in order to line everything up so we can submit for sealed bids. Any questions on that?
Okay, let's move on to item number 11, curriculum. Talking about our social studies curriculum.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to share about the K-12 social studies recommendations on behalf of the social studies curriculum committees. Okay. All right, so just to give you a little timeline of what work we've done as a committee. We started our social studies review last year in the 23-24 school year. We spent that first year at the top of the circle there doing a needs assessment and data analysis. A lot of our work last year was focused on the standards alignment. If you remember, we had new standards from the state roll out in 2024, and they were significantly different. It's not uncommon that our standards are evolving at the state level and they come down to the school level. But usually the changes are small revisions, a standard here or there added, a lot of clarity revisions. The social studies standards were quite significantly different, so we spent a lot of time going through them as a committee. In June of 2024, the school board approved our curriculum guide, which is the outline of all of our standards, and it leads us into our work this year that we did by reviewing the curriculum resources. So we used the curriculum guide that you approved in June to review those curriculum resources throughout this year. And tonight I'm here to share with you the recommendations from each of the committees. All right, just as an overview, this is our philosophy statement. It's probably one of my favorite meetings. I do split our curriculum committees into elementary, middle, and high school. And so this is a time that we come together and we build a philosophy statement for that content area, looking at all learners from K-12. So it's in our curriculum guide, you've already approved it, you've seen it already, I just wanted to bring it back up. Truly, we do promote that lifelong learning, and that's very evident in our philosophy statements. These were the members of our elementary committee, and some of them are in the room tonight, so thank them for their time. It's a lot of work to review curriculum, and especially this with those big standards changes. Our elementary curriculum resources are South Dakota Studies Weekly. So Studies Weekly is a company that wrote a curriculum specific for South Dakota because of the major changes of our elementary standards. So it is completely aligned to our new South Dakota standards. It's also very student friendly. It's in a format of like a newspaper or a little magazine. This curriculum committee also noted that it has lots of visuals, maps, and nice graphics. There are literature connections for each of the weeks too that are already pointed out to us. It has a lot of vocabulary, videos, podcasts for the teacher to help them with some of their knowledge as well as virtual field trips. At the middle school, these are our members of our committee. So again, some of them are in the room. I want to make sure to thank each group because they work really hard on this process. I would also note that you could see up there in both groups that our curriculum committee also includes not only teachers, but school board members. So Sarah was on our social studies committee as well as parents. So we do broaden our perspective to make sure that we're making sound decisions. For middle school, they decided on the publisher status, and then that's the title of each one. You'll notice that 7th and 8th grade have the same book with the revision of the standards and the integration of geography throughout. That title for 7th and 8th can be used for both grades. So they'll be able to use the first part of it because it's chronological. They'll be able to use the first part of it in 7th grade and then continue with that same text in 8th grade as well. Middle school also highlighted the robust online features, offering lots of primary sources, visuals, teacher and student supports, and the option for customization, which is really important to us because we want to make sure we make it our own and very focused on our students. Also, like you heard from Mr. Clemish about our ELL students, both of these resources have lots of supports in there for not only the students, but also the teachers to help with their learning. They also highlighted the compatibility with some of our other programs like Google Classroom and Formative. Next is the High School Social Studies Committee. Thank you. There are some of them in the room again, and so I appreciate them coming to support their work as well. And then I just did a listing of all of the high school. The high school does carry on with the Sabbath product in our first core classes, the advanced classes, AP courses. We moved on to a Pearson text, similar to something we have already right now. And then we also do have one Cengage text at AP US History. Under AP US History are also some additional book titles that Mr. Har has his students read in that course. Same highlights from high school, but I would also add just the rigor of the question types, really helping kids to be critical thinkers and analytical in their answers. And then they appreciated the engagement factor of that very in-depth content for that level. And once again, thank you to all of you that are in the room for all of your work on that committee. 2 years of hard work, extra time, a lot of resource digging and evaluation. And then a final note would be that this is just the presentation of the recommendations. There are sample print resources out on the table in the lobby. And for the next 30 days, our building is open 7:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. I did also put a link to our resources that you can view digitally on our website under my page, the curriculum and integration. Are there any questions?
I have one. Could you scroll back to the middle school
Yes.
for just a minute on the book selection? Yeah, so the 2019 copyright, can you comment on that? Is is there a newer version that's coming, or,
So that is the newest version
Okay.
that they have right now, yes.
okay, was there any discussion about that, just in general, any concern?
It's probably it probably actually came out in 2020, 2021. The copyright dates are usually a little bit behind. And then this company does a really nice job of updating their current products online, rather than always move platforms and then have to re-copyright the textbook too.
And that makes sense, thank you.
If I remember right, that's really what the committee was pleased with, the amount of online resources that they have, as far as all of those.
Yes.
I would just say as a committee member, it was just extremely gratifying to see the teachers, just how invested they are, and really an idea of their professionalism and what they were doing. It was very, very hard pulling brand new standards together and figuring out first, second, third, and how it was very taxing. It's unlike any other curriculum that I had been a part of, and you should be very proud of our teachers and what they're doing. And sometimes there's this idea that we have these rogue teachers out there teaching whatever they want to teach, and it just is not the case. And they're very professional as far as how they go about planning and then teaching.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, we are gonna go back a bit into our consent, or go back in our agenda and go over, we had one consent item that I thought was on our agenda, but we need to do some housekeeping and make a motion on that. It's under our consent agenda number I, or letter I, for the resignations and terminations. We did have an addition. We do need to act on this.
So we're adding I then basically.
Yes, on our consent agenda.
Are we adding I, or we are just voting on number 5?
It's an addendum.
Or amending I, yes.
So motion to approve the consent agenda addendum for letter I.
Second?
A motion and a second, any discussions? Hearing none, roll call please.
Mueller,
Yes.
Greenway,
Yes.
Randall,
Yep.
Show,
Yes.
Sarda.
Yes, thank you for allowing that correction. And now is item number 12, executive session.
Motion to move into executive session via South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, number 4.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call please.
Greenway,
Yes.
Mueller,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Shield,
Yes.
Sarda.
Yes, we will now move to executive session.
just curious where you meet.
Cause you have to have enough rooms where they can go and caucus and then you can go
And then come,
caucus.
yeah, I got you.
Live?
We're live.
Oh, we're live, okay, no one's coming back in, I declare us back into session. And our final item is action on executive session. There was no action taken on our executive session. And now is time for adjournment.
Move adjourned.
Motion and second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Crandall,
Yes.
Greenway,
Yes.
Bueller,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Carter.
Yes, we are adjourned, thank you.
Very good.